Hi, my name is Stephen Taylor, and today I'm explaining the learning disorder dyslexia and how high school teachers can improve their student learning. For student teachers, this should serve as an accurate guide to how you can best assist your students. To begin, we must define dyslexia and look at how it works. Dyslexia is a neurobiological learning disorder that interferes with individuals' abilities to process information when they are reading as well as when they are writing and doing some other tasks. It affects the left temporal cortex and other left hemisphere regions of the brain that are associated with reading tasks. Due to the nature of this learning disorder, it is extremely relevant in an education setting, where a large portion of the student's day is spent using this component of the brain. You might be wondering, as teachers, how do we know what the signs and symptoms are of dyslexia? You may notice students that appear to be struggling with written work, despite the fact that they are good learners, especially in other areas. Students with dyslexia are more likely to be fatigued after comprehensive reading and writing tasks and have trouble sequencing, processing, and memorizing during activities. Students with dyslexia will have certain disadvantages that include their capacity to recite phonetics and even perform verbal tasks. Although dyslexia may have mostly bad connotations, it can also improve students' abilities in some other areas, such as their interpersonal skills, motivation, and outlook on life. The important question here is, what impact does this have on the classroom? For students with dyslexia, it means daily tasks and activities can be much more challenging, despite possibly being an easy difficulty for these students. As for the teachers and staff, resources, time, and support are required, and an adjusted teaching approach may be necessary to adequately teach these students. The first component of the tree model is using teaching strategies. These strategies can be used to improve the effectiveness of a phys ed lesson, ensuring an inclusive classroom. The reason teaching strategies are so important is because dyslexic students may have difficulty reading and memorizing instructions and important points taught throughout the lesson. The strategies I believe will work best for dyslexic students is planning a lesson to only include 3 key teaching points. The way that we can focus on the important aspects that need to be remembered. Other teaching instructions should be direct and given with demonstrations at the start of the lesson and before each key teaching point. Lastly, games and instruction time should be reduced to help dyslexic students remember what is being taught before heading off. The second component of the tree model is rules, both the context of what they are and how they are used. The purpose of altering the rules is because dyslexic students may forget rules that are listed and may struggle to read rules that are given in a written format. Therefore, both at the beginning of the lesson and before activities, teachers can implement different formats and different styles of rules. These include using visual cue cards, showing students YouTube videos that explain sporting rules, as well as having classroom rules such as eyes to the teacher when they are giving instructions and no talking during these instructions. Rules can be more effective if you only focus on a primary set during games. For example, instructing students that during a game of basketball, the focus will be on traveling, double dribbles, and backcourt violations, and each of these rules being broken will result in a losing a point. That way students can clearly focus on the rules being taught without worrying about an entire rule book or tactics. An important aspect of the tree model is changing equipment to suit these dyslexic students and improve the inclusivity of the classroom. The aim of this is to change to help dyslexic students who struggle to read instructions off of written worksheets or rule books. These changes can be made throughout the entirety of the lesson and should be used to replace any equipment that cause dyslexic students to have a disadvantage during the lesson. There may not be as many opportunities for equipment to be altered during a phys ed lesson. However, teachers can implement ICT for videos, such as electric whiteboards, phones, and iPads for recording, as well as print out instructions and rules onto cue cards, using big visual symbols to emphasize the messages that you are trying to convey. The last component of the tree model is implementing change to the environment. Again, dyslexic students are quite reasonable in a phys ed setting. However, even small changes can be made to improve their overall learning experience. These changes are viable for the entire lesson and can be seen by having outdoor lessons with open spaces and having lighting and background sounds in mind. The reason behind this is due to students being able to rely more on visual signals with greater space, where speech is not as important as a way of communication. This is because dyslexic students have difficulties in their left temporal cortex, which in a sports setting mainly affects their speech, recognition, and memory. To summarize, I would say that dyslexia, although not the biggest issue in phys ed, should still be given thought during lesson plans and should be reflected on by both teachers and students, with a focus on slowly improving the lessons each time and finding a way to make this learning experience for dyslexic students as good as possible.